Hello, Brickman here, and be sure to check out the best parts of Spider-Man Homecoming before checking out this video. Spoiler warning, of course, so we are discussing the worst parts of Spider-Man Homecoming. Don't get me wrong, this was definitely a great film, but all great movies have their flaws, so this is the latest installment to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Phase 3 to be specific. So without further ado, let's get into this. Alright, so what are the bad parts about this movie? Well, there's really not that much to go over here. We're going to start off with specifically some of the characters. So, Happy Hogan, his character changed a lot. He used to be actually the Happy Hogan guy. And then now, all of a sudden, he just seems like a really old man, a changed man who just hates life at this point, alright? He was just getting, so bothered every time Spider-Man was talking to him, for example. And, I mean, sure, he kind of spammed text, but, I mean, he could have been a little more happy as he used to be, but he wasn't. Zendaya's character, Michelle, aka apparently, whoa, MJ. Is she really Mary Jane at all? No, she is not. And of course, as most Marvel Cinematic Universe films do have nowadays, they are still also very more comic inaccurate than you'd expect, and yet they also throw in a lot of stuff that gets Marvel comic fans pumped, and yet they seem to not be bothered so much by the inaccurate stuff, but I kind of am. I mean, they're completely making up stuff that sometimes doesn't really work out. For example, Ego, the living planet, not a living planet, but a living human celestial inside of a planet, and Star-Lord being his son having a bunch of superpowers. That was all a bit of a stretch. So, how was this film, though? Zendaya as MJ, Mary Jane, I mean, that doesn't really work out considering her character, just her being that random wandering character who's always alone. That's not really the character of Mary Jane at all. She was more of a kind of cooler kid. And obviously had friends from the start, I believe. And plus, just the way she looks. I mean, her appearance isn't quite accurate. But usually that doesn't bother me as much, but it's fine. Alright? It's not fine. And then how about Vulture? I mean, his character, too, was a little inaccurate. But still, everything else was great. Michael Keaton's acting was actually really, really good for this character. I really like that. Now, next topic, let's talk about Spider-Man's origin story, alright? Obviously, they did not put his origin story in this film, which that was mentioned in the best parts, because that is a good stuff. But, however, it would be nice if just that one little moment where he's talking to Ned and he said, oh, you got bit by a spider? He should have probably elaborated on that just a little bit more. It would have been nice if he at least said radioactive spider, but that's a little tiny flaw that kind of got on my nerves. I was just alright, you could elaborate just a smidge bit more, give fans a little more idea, because this can definitely be anyone's first time watching any Spider-Man film in general, you never know. Okay, next minor flaw, which actually is kind of a huge flaw that most people are just ignoring and saying is perfectly okay, considering how big the Marvel Cinematic Universe is, but if you really think about it, it's actually a huge flaw then, because it actually messes up the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. So you'll notice at the beginning they keep time jumping, and it's alright, so it starts at the very end of Marvel's Avengers, which that film is supposed to be taking place in 2012, or at least you would think, but then they say, bam, 8 years later, big words on the screen there. Whoa, wait. 8 years later, so that would leave us in 2020, but, and also that's skipping to the part where it's in the middle of Civil War, and then it says 2 months later, and then that's where this film starts to take place, which would still supposed to be in 2016 when Civil War takes place. And they actually made it pretty clear during Civil War that it was during 2016. And also, in Civil War in 2016, you have Vision mention that it was 8 years since Iron Man revealed himself as Iron Man. Tony Stark revealed himself as Iron Man, which would indeed be in 2008. And you will also notice a little Easter egg at the end when he's I've been carrying this thing around since 2008, which is when the first Iron Man film came out, which means indeed Civil War would be 2016, but Marvel's Avengers would have to be 2012, wouldn't it? Or you'd think it would have to be 2012. Either way, it would have to be a few years after the first Iron Man film, and even the second Iron Man film. It all just doesn't add up, right? There are many. I could go much more in depth in this, trust me. There's a lot going on here, but either way, never the math seems to add up to this movie taking place when it's supposed to, which would be right after Civil War, and Civil War taking place where it's supposed to. Either way, either of those films would have screwed up the complete timeline, either those films being Spider-Man Homecoming or Captain America Civil War, where you could say, who cares, Avengers screwed up everything. Either way, the whole timeline, years-wise, was kind of screwed up. I mean, I don't know why they had to go and make 8 years. That was probably a flaw in editing, but how did that not pass by them? Alright, it's kind of giant words up on the screen. Bam, 8 years later. They could have just simply said 4, maybe could have gone away with 5 years, but hey, either way. Oh wait, did I happen to mention, too, that even the directors themselves said that this movie was supposed to take place before its release, which it released July 7th, 2017, so it cannot be in 2020 no matter what, and yeah, it's gonna be 2016, and it's not 2016 though. If it's 8 years later, I don't know, man. Alright, but anyways, that's enough of that. Alright, I don't wanna hurt anybody's mind. You could look up deep research and find out when each movie is actually supposed to take place. Although they usually say, yeah, it's supposed to take place when it's actually released. But sometimes they decide it's not supposed to take place when it's actually released, and that's when a bunch of flaws come in, and it all just goes to... Yeah, alright, that's pretty much it. Each and every one of these flaws were pretty minor, though, not a huge deal at all. I might just be overthinking the film, just because I think to myself, well, I have to make a worst parts video, so what are the bad parts of this movie? So, either way, this movie is almost flawless. It was really, really good. Alright, so, you guys tell me, though, what you think of this movie down in the comments below. What are some of your flaws with the film? What are some of your pros? Go back to the best parts video. Alright, so that all being said, thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for lots more videos coming real soon. Bye.